Hey everyone, this is Joanne Bohegan. I'm a vice chair on your Foster City Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. And tonight I have the privilege of inviting you to watch our new kind of candidate forum. We've decided that the traditional Q&A debate structure is just not good enough for where we are as a community. And we thought it would be great to allow each of the candidates to have a chat with the chamber, an informal opportunity to talk about ideas, lessons learned from the campaign road, and the future priorities they see for the city and for our community. So join me tonight as we unveil Chat with the Chamber with each of our candidates. We hope you learn a little something, and we hope you get out your vote. Patrick Sullivan, welcome. Thanks for joining us for a Chat with the Chamber. How are you doing?
Great, Joanne. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
It has been a while. My goodness, you are relentless. We have a little bit of time that we want to give you the opportunity to have a conversation with us and maybe talk about some things that the traditional format of the Q&A and debate really has not lent itself to. So as you know, we kind of changed things up and decided that we were just going to have a conversation with each of the council candidates. And we offered to each of you the opportunity to choose from some areas of interest that we had, as well as potentially your own. So before we get into all of the kind of ways in which for people to connect with Patrick, let's just start the conversation and dive right on in. So I'm gonna let you take the lead. I know. What can I say?
Thanks, Joanne. That's very well appreciated. Thank you very much for the Chamber of Commerce for putting this on. As a chamber member, I really value the chamber and what you've done for businesses. My name is Patrick Sullivan, and I'm council. I'm a 40-year businessman in residential and commercial real estate. I am not a developer. What I do is sell residential and commercial real estate. I've balanced my budget for 40 years. I've established my own 401k, my own retirement. So I'm my own boss. So I call the shots. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm also a past member of the San Mateo Grand Jury 2013-2014. I served on as president of the Lions in Foster City in 2017-2018. I'm a business owner, as I mentioned, and it's important that you know that I also give back to the community. I teach special education in Sequoia High School District as an aide. I got my master's degree at Notre Dame in education. My master's degree was in mainstreaming autistic kids in San Mateo County. I also served also on the Park and Rec Committee, as I mentioned, for 10 years, chaired it in 2005. What drives me is the love for Foster City and the quality of life that we all deserve here in Foster City. Before I start, I wanted to kind of start with kind of my theme is leadership, not politics. And it kind of reminds me, anybody that knows me personally knows I have an affiliation with JFK, and I'm a big collector in the Bay Area. And you know, there was a little story that was out there the other day, and it said it was on one cold night, a Secret Service agent outside the Oval Office, JFK asked him inside, but he was told that he couldn't. Kennedy brought out 2 cups of hot chocolate, which they drank in the cold. Years later, the weeping agent said, "That's the kind of president I've been serving." So what I ask the people today, we need new leadership, and I'm looking forward to serving the people of Foster City. Before I decided to run my campaign, I've gotten close. I was real close in 2018. And I decided that I needed to cross the aisle. I've got people from the city managers, Rick Wyckoff, who's endorsed me, Charlie Berninsky, who's a former councilman and mayor. I also have 4 planning commissioners, past planning commissioners, Ollie Patton, current planning commissioner, Robbie. These people have inspired me to run. I'm honored to have Jim Lawrence, the first Afro-American council person in Foster City. I've crossed all things. This is a nonpartisan seat, and it's about serving the public that's important. It became evident to me that we had a fractured council, even though we have removed one council member from the council, they still seem to be fragmented and off track a little bit. I felt it was necessary that we need to get a new city manager. We need to get that levy on time and on budget. We also need to do some reevaluate the park and rec. The park and rec, they were talking about a 71 or $72 million project. As I mentioned, I served on the park and rec. I think it's necessary that we reevaluate everything. The big fly in the ointment is COVID-19. COVID-19, we have to do something about it. We have to start to plan now. It's very, very important. As you know, all of the council meetings are done by Zoom. So it is a little bit challenge. We're doing this by Zoom. Normally we would have the honor of having it at the Marriott or some nice place with nice appetizers and nice water and Coke and maybe some wine.
We offered to deliver you coffee, but I don't think that you took us up on that offer. So there you go.
Well, you know what? I was over there and I saw more today at Penelope's, and she did offer me that coffee. So, but I already had my cup of coffee already. I'm for
this. I want to slow you down for a second, because when I started, I said I wanted to make sure that we didn't take the time to repeat what it is that our community's already heard from you. And everything that you just said is something that I believe is really key. And we were going to end with, but now you've taken the opportunity to kick us off and give us, if you will, kind of a macro frame and a summary of how you've gotten here and why you want to be a part of council. Let's start the conversation with one of the areas that you had chosen, which is great cities have great blank. So
great leadership.
Tell us what you were thinking and why you decided that that was an area of conversation that you wanted to have.
Well, it's a very important conversation because a lot of us in the public don't understand how the council works together with the city manager. The city manager is trying to work with the city council on policy, and that policy has to go through, and the city manager is the CEO. As you know, we need our CEO like Apple Computer needs their CEO. Without a CEO, the stocks may go down because you've got to have that general or that captain right there. And it's critical for a city, and the city manager is making sure that everything that the council wants in policy is ethical, honest, and on time and on budget with the vision of what the city needs. So it is critical. It is critical to have good leadership in every capacity with the balancing of your city council and your city manager.
So when you think about great cities have great blank, is leadership the concentration for you, or is the city manager what you see as critical for us in the next 4 years? How are you making that alignment?
Yeah, no, thank you for the great question. I think it is the city manager. As you know, we've had the opportunity of James Hardy. James Hardy was a outstanding city manager. And I reminisce the year 2008 with Mr. Hardy, and that was the real estate crash. And as we all know, Foster City's budget, they usually save 1/3 of their budget each year in reserves. Foster City's always been known for their reserves. We're probably one of the only cities in the peninsula. I think we even offered San Mateo to lend them money at one time, but they didn't do it. And that was for their levy, matter of fact. That's what was kind of funny. No, I think that we really have to understand that it's important with the good leadership that we have a city manager that works well with the city council. Currently, we have a temporary city manager, and the city manager has the guidance of working with your public works, with your rec department, with your finance department. And if you don't have that CEO working with them, then mixed messages go to the city council, or city council goes back to the department heads and is looking for information. So we need that general or that CEO to guide us. And I think the city manager is the first place to start.
So you may or may not have the opportunity as a candidate to affect that decision. Is there an opinion as to whether or not you wish for the existing city council to hold on making the appointment of a new city manager until the new council is in place? Or are you suggesting that the critical nature of the role be, if you will, confirmed at its earliest opportunity?
Well, let's dissect that question because that's a really outstanding question. As we all know, the city council had made a mistake on a city manager, and that city manager cost us dearly with the fragmented departments. And basically, it was a pick of the council, but they didn't go to outside sources, to my knowledge, in research for a city manager. It was almost kind of an internal thing where somebody only made an opinion of a particular thing. I think Mr. Mineta, that was the former city manager, came from a public works background. I'm not sure that he came or had the skills of a city manager. I want to be part of that decision making. I would rather them not rush and get a city manager make a mistake. So I understand the trepidation the council is going through, but you also sometimes wonder, every day or month that we go by without a city manager, it causes havoc with the city. We need that leadership, and we need no politics involved in this. And we need to probably have started that process 8 months ago, 9 months ago.
So let's keep in mind that everyone who is going to listen may or may not have any history of many of these discussion topics. In fact, I think it's safe to say that many have cast their ballots based on who they wished to vote for, but that there is a significant amount of voters that are still undecided. One of the main reasons that the chamber maintained hosting a forum, even though we have adapted the format of it, is because we know that there are many of our employees who live in Foster City, who are undecided in their selection, that there are homeowners associations, which many think of as residential communities, and they are, but the HOAs themselves are actually nonprofit business entities. And basically our school district and all of the students and families. So there are a lot of things happening that still allow our community to listen and learn and cast a vote. So you had wanted to kind of talk about the, I believe, city budget and rainy day funds and leadership. You're more than welcome to take the topic in any direction, but I want to make sure that the messages that you would like to get, and let's keep in mind, messages are not necessarily data. We want people to get a sense of who you are and why Patrick. And in those areas, why are they of importance to you, and how would you like to be a part of affecting change?
You asked so many good questions there. I'm going to try to dissect as many of them as I can. First of all, it's the quality of life that we all like here in Foster City. I've been here for 32 years. I saw the Rick Wyckoff city manager. I saw the Jim Hardy city manager. I saw the Kevin Miller city manager. They're all people that I've consulted with. And I really feel that we need to get the ship on course again. And I think in order for us to do that, we need to have that city manager. So I'm not going to go totally into the budget, but just to give the gravity for the public, we run on a fiscal budget, and we have almost $47 million a year, or 20 to 21. Our police and fire represent almost 55% of that budget. 60% of our operating budget comes from property taxes. Another small percentage comes from transit occupancy tax. So we need to get the businesses up and at them. I think one of the biggest fragmented things is that if we take a look at the Edgewater Shopping Center, 60% of those businesses are failing right now. Now, I'm not saying that city council has the answer, but we need to be prepared to work out relationships so we can keep the fabric of the businesses going.
So
You had another question. Go ahead.
let's do this then, because again, there's so much information that comes from you. Let's not get stuck in the details per se. Let's have a conversation about, how do you feel a city manager can be brought into an operating environment if the priorities and needs, lessons learned from COVID, have not yet been truly understood? Do we know who and what we're hiring for? Because I'm hearing you, and I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. So I want to make sure we double back on this item. the council, the priority, the initiatives, whomever is put in place, whether it is existing or new, they are chartered with carrying out and programmatically delivering, right, those policies. If you had a magic wand right now and you want to be able to say you are going to affect things, what are the key priority policies, Patrick, that you want to have in place that you wish for the city's governance to deliver on?
Well, we need to look at the bigger picture. We should have started on the COVID-19 day one. We have to go by each department. We got to look at the public works, the rec department. How many of those things after the COVID-19 are we going to find out that people can work remotely? So we have to look at the budgets, and we've got to look at them quarterly. We can't wait until this epidemic is over. We have to start day one. And that's where I'm coming from to begin with. I haven't seen any transparency that we've done that. The only thing I've heard from council is that we may need to cut $500,000 from Park and Rec. Well, I'm saying if you're going to cut $500,000 from Park and Rec and we're closing half the Park and Rec, how's the Park and Rec going to make revenue? So I'm not sure what behind closed doors they're doing because there's no transparency. I'm just hearing chatter. I understand that maybe the acting city manager, Dante Hall, doesn't want to make those decisions because he feels that the new incoming city manager should be making those decisions with the current council. So I think we have to go day one. We have to do that. We can't wait until it's over with. And I think that's a fail. I appears to be a little bit of a failure, in my opinion, that I'm not hearing any steady course. The only thing that I heard from Mr. Hall, Dante Hall, was the normal stuff that we're not going to hire a new somebody in personnel, or that we're not going to hire a new police officer. So I heard those general things, and that's a pretty typical thing to talk about. But we're going to have some deficits, and we need to be prepared on how are we going to get that revenue coming back in with also maintaining our reserve.
So let's take the conversation in two different directions, and you can choose whichever, both or either. You referenced that we have a healthy reserve, and reserves to industry are often used for a rainy day fund when there's an emergency. The reserves have not been utilized for the levy. The reserves have really not significantly been tapped into for this pandemic, at least to date. Let's talk about you not assessing or providing comment of efforts to date by the existing council per se. Let's tell the community what Patrick is planning on doing in, say, his first 30 days so that you can get access to the information you need to be able to determine what to do next. What does that look like?
Well, very good question, but I partially answered it for you to begin with. Day one, I think each department head needs to meet every 60 or 90 days and assess how much funds and how much money are they spending on employees, for example. How many are working remotely? How many are not working? So I think, with the cooperation of the council, I think we need to do that every 90 days. And this is what I've said day one.
So from do you see budget and cut as the only way in which to balance? Or do you see opportunities, in particular as a businessman, to grow the top line? Where do you see opportunities for revenue enhancement as opposed to cuts?
Well, I'm going to take you to the business end of it. If after we finish, probably the commercial rentals will go down. If commercial rental space goes down, that's going to give a great opportunity for new businesses to come into Foster City to make it. Because the top reason why most businesses fail in Foster City is because of the rents being so high. So I'm going to look at the good side of it. There's going to be probably less people traveling in their cars because they will be working remotely, whether they're working remotely for Foster City or Gilead's or Apple or Illumia. We're going to have a positive thing happening because I think it's going to level a little bit. And I'm a commercial real estate. I don't think they're going to, those leases are going up, because you're finding out we don't need a 10,000 square foot building anymore, when we can only need a 2,000 or 3,000 square foot thing and accomplish the same thing. So with supply and demand, I think this could be a golden opportunity for more retail coming into Foster City and more sales tax coming into Foster City.
So do you see, you're touching on so many great points, do you see a reprioritization of land use, if you will, from impacts of COVID, Ben? Obviously, do you see a diminished kind of level of amenities at the commercial level? Are you talking about services and business, or are you talking about the constructs that we currently have to really allow us to grow?
Well, I think our tech industry has taught us a lot. Apple Computer is an example. Everybody's working remotely. And Apple's very successful right now. One of the most successful companies around now. Gilead's is doing a lot of that same thing too. So I think with the technology, and we all thought you needed that big commercial building, maybe that big commercial building might become housing if we need it. It might be a more mixed use situation. It could be a blessing in itself. So I think we've got to wait until the dust settles. It is showing us that they can trust employees to work remotely. They're finding out there's more production. Now, I know it's not that easy for families, and because it's a lot of stress, you know, mom and dad's home with the kids. So I think we're going to meet a happy medium, and I think we're going to see a better economy once it's over with.
So a bit of a resurgence and revitalization that you think will come, almost like a renaissance period?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
You speak of quality of life. Help us understand, what does that actually mean to you? What is it that you are trying to preserve as quality of life in Foster City?
Well, first of all, I'm passionate about our waterways, our parks. I want to see less traffic like everybody else. I want to make sure that we have more electric cars. Maybe in Foster City in 10 years, we're going to say 50% of the cars that are used in the city of Foster City are all electric. Or maybe we will become one of the first cities on the peninsula to only require you be taxed if you don't have an electric car. So, and we're going to have more electrical charging stations. I think as one of the first planned cities. Now, I have a real far-fetched idea, but I don't think it's that far-fetched. What about out there in the bay? Why aren't we not using wind generators? Because some of that land out there can't be used, and they're quiet now. Those wind generators, if it worked, it made sense, could provide electricity for the city of Foster City.
So let's go down this path a little bit, because what I'm hearing from you, Patrick, is there's a little bit more climate, green, sustainable Patrick in there than maybe people have heard about. So back in time, several years back, one of the citizen advisory committees for the city of Foster City was called the Environmental Sustainability Task Force. And SDEF, as it was called, actually identified ways in which to use many of the elements that Foster City provides, wind being one of them, as an opportunity for power and energy. And steps were taken to move more aggressively to solar. Newsom now has, if you will, an ambitious guide. How should people who are thinking about Patrick think about Patrick as it relates to his stance on how aggressively we move to more sustainable models?
Well, I think it's a very good question, and I've always been passionate about it. I've even ordered a new Tesla, but of course it's 2 years down the road, so I haven't bought it yet. But you only put $100.
It can't be the salary that the city council pays. That can't help at all. So
well, that'll help me pay for the charge. And you know what, walking around, and I'm one of the only people that has probably knocked down more doors than anybody. Just because I run for office, I know what people drive. I would tell you there's at least 10 to 15% of the people in Foster City that drive a Tesla. They may not just have one, they may not just have two, they have three. So I think Tesla model is really rocking, and especially in this day and age. And let's talk about the green energy a little bit. As the state of California, we're all going electric now. They're getting away from gas. They don't want gas stoves, gas water heaters. So the sustainability of our economy is pushing us in that right direction. So I think we now is the time for us to embrace that industry and make sure that we live a much more cleaner life with clean energy.
So when you think about the levy then, because you've been very vocal about the levy, the project on time, on budget, how do you manage kind of your thoughts about on time, on budget with the way that it is spec'd to date with some of these things that you're talking about, which is taking the opportunity for something that is foundational to the sustainability of Foster City, but really enhancing them so that we can get, if you will, some additional benefits out of something beyond a correction?
Can you kind of repeat your question? You
Well,
got it all wrapped around. I want to make sure I answer it.
Yeah, and if we need to, we can go back and edit and clarify, but you're talking about kind of, you have been very vocal about, the need for the seated council to ensure that the project as specified is on time and on budget. The unique part of the conversation, because this is actually one of the first times I'm kind of hearing this from Patrick, so perhaps this is net new for others as well. There is interest in more sustainability initiatives in our community. On time and on budget for levy may not necessarily give the community the best opportunity to make enhancements to the sustainability beyond sea level, right? Rise and corrections. Are there things that you would want to champion, design, education, other projects to be made or added into this CIP project if you were elected?
Well, one of the things on the levy that I was passionate about, if we have a catastrophe in Foster City, and maybe the only way we can get out is the bay. And if that's the only way, we need to have the ability on the levee, and I haven't heard anything, to get out in boats. We may find out that Hillsdale or 3rd Avenue are down. And if they're down, so one of the things that I've always emphasized on this levy, besides on time and on budget, is that we have the accessibility to get out in that bay if we need to. Now, I'm not quite sure I see that in the design, but I would be passionate about that to make sure. One of the things that really disturbs me about the levy is not the cost so far, because we're under budget, but we all know that that could change, is that the people that live in those areas have not had a clear picture of what the levy is going to look like. Granted, there's a website that the city provides, and that's great. I think it's wonderful, but it doesn't give them any really concrete idea what it visualizes. And when they, with a little more knowledge, at least they could speak out. And a lot of people are impacted on the levy situation. So I think it's important that we have more transparency and let more people know in an earlier notice if you're going to close a park. I was passionate on the EIR report, and I stand a little bit corrected. What it said is that you cannot close 2 contiguous bay trails next to a park. So we still have not quite dotted our I and crossed our T on it. And why do I say that on time and on budget? It's not just putting the shovel in and then finding out that our 2016 environmental impact report was not followed. And I'm hoping that I can tell with the shuffling in City Hall that they're doing their best to find out and to make sure that's done. So, leadership is about rattling the cage sometimes in asking people for accountability. And I feel it's really important as a public servant, as a citizen, to ask questions. And if you don't get the questions you answer, find out through another source. It's important. I don't claim to be an expert on EIR. I don't claim to be an expert on the levy, but I do read a report. And when a report says that, I have to question my elected officials and say, are we ready to put that shovel in? I don't want the people of Foster City to be levied a fine, We can't be on time and on budget if we get fined. We're over budget.
Absolutely. Um, let's talk about community and how you define community and where you see the greatest opportunities for you should you be elected to be able to really move the community forward. And that is using very specific words that have very different meanings for a whole lot of people. So, depending on how you choose to answer, hopefully, will give a little bit more insight as to how you see things.
Well, the one skill that I have developed, and it even goes into my new company, Podcast by the Bay, where we don't take right, left, middle, or center. We listen, we listen, we listen, we listen. We ask questions, we ask questions. We're not here to challenge people, but to hear what our voters want to know, what our citizens want to know, to make a sustainable and better community. Whether that's a green community, it's also enhancing our businesses. I have a lot of my campaign signs, probably a good half dozen in businesses. These are people. There can be a cleaners, a delicatessen, a pizza. It could be a cash and carry Indian grocery. These people are who I care about. They're all important to the fabric of our community, and we have to hear their voices, because if we don't, we're going to lose these people, and now we're not going to sustain the quality of life we really want in this community. I'm passionate about the dog park. I was honored to be on the park and rec when the dog park was there. And if you go on the internet, you'll probably see pictures of me and my dogs, my two bulldogs, Winston and Churchill. Now I've got a small dog. So I'm passionate about making sure our waterways, our parks, our schools. You alluded to, not alluded, I don't want to use the word alluded, but in an earlier part of your question, you talked about the school district. And by God, I hear that voice coming back from City Hall. And I'm hearing it from council people without picking on. That's none of our business. We don't get involved. That's the school district. The school district is part of our business. We can't tell the school district what to do, but we can greatly influence them. A few years back, we wanted to have special meetings with the school district. I'm not sure they worked. We need good representation. The people that are talking to me in the streets that have young kids and their families, Patrick, what do you feel about classroom size? Patrick, what do you think about the new school? And I say, you know what? We want to keep our classroom size down. We want to keep our teachers here. We've got to look at the bigger picture. We've got to work with City Hall. City Hall is also the community. It represents moms, dads, kids, seniors, people, renters, everybody. It's just a gamut of people. It's not just home ownership. It's people in the community that want to live a quality life. And I want to deliver that to them because they deserve it. And I want to live here in a quality environment.
I think before we kind of move to close, what you're really raising is kind of the inference, and I will say inference, that the city has a responsibility, obviously, to the city and its responsibilities, but they're not always a direct and linear relationship. And so you're identifying areas that you see as crisis or opportunity that, should you be elected, that you really want to champion and advocate for. And if I'm hearing that correctly, obviously the school district, education foundation, school district, partners. What are some of the other, if you will, key challenges that are facing our county and our community that you feel as a member of council that you absolutely want to be a part of championing to better?
Well, I think one of the most important things besides the housing, and the housings are going to change probably after the COVID, is transportation. We have a problem. Transportation is just as much of a burning issue as housing. And I think we need to have a much more efficient system. As you know, and on my podcast, I've interviewed assemblymen, mayors, people, experts in transportation, whether it's Samtrams or BART. We need to get a transit district in San Mateo County that is much more efficient. We've got a Clipper card, but the Clipper card is great, but we don't have an intertwining of our Samtrams, our Caltrain, our BART. We need to have a much more efficient transit district that works. And I think we can champion that between the cities, the state, and the county. We're all in a different, Foster City is unique in its respect. We're kind of landlocked with east-west on 92 and Hillsdale Boulevard. So we're kind of landlocked, but it would be nice if we had a smoother connection in and out of Foster City. Look what would happen if an emergency happened in here. I witnessed last year at Costco, I was overwhelmed to see a helicopter fly into Foster City right across from Costco, right on that grassy thing. I said, wow, this must be one special person. It was a special person, but guess what? If we didn't have that ability for the helicopter ride, that person probably would have died. Now, not everybody can afford a helicopter. So if not everybody can afford a helicopter, we need to look outside of the box and make sure that we have the medical facilities available for emergencies. This was just somebody that had a heart attack, but the average citizen couldn't afford that helicopter.
Right. What we've learned in particular over these last 8 months, the comments that you're making, I think that oftentimes the city sees that the city has to resolve things in and of itself and or with only other government agencies. And for us, the Chamber's Business Leadership Council, which is now in its 5th year, has done some significant advocacy, if you will, behind closed doors, not to hide anything from anybody, but because the nature of the discussions are private to industry. And in working with the city, and whether it be in TMA discussions, so transportation management, whether it be in finding better and collective ways, et cetera. So there's huge opportunity in areas to have discussion that in particular, I think COVID has really forced, because to your point, our employers have and very proudly put their people in the first position. The safety, the comfort of their employees, their desire or interest to come back to site, it is largely solely at the decision of the employee. And that is really going to have a significant change on traffic. It's also going to have a significant change on the demand of housing, because it's one thing when you've got a small, really tiny place and you're not in it very often. It's another where it becomes your office and you need to be there all the time, right? So, what do you see as the role that the Chamber, the Business Leadership Council, large, small nonprofits can play in partnering with the city in tackling these problems that you're identifying?
Well, one problem that's become real evident, we want to get people back working, and that's childcare. I was glad or pleased to see that the city of Foster City is working diligently to develop some childcare, because as we realize, because of the COVID-19, a lot of the childcare places have closed. We lost one childcare place because of the school. So childcare is real critical right now, that we develop either with the chamber or nonprofits, that we make it affordable for people to get their kids back into childcare and get back to work. So childcare is probably just as passionate as transportation and housing, because we can't get our mothers, our fathers, our single parents back in the workforce unless we can provide childcare. And I'm not asking the city to provide the childcare. I'm just asking as an opportunity for a venue for it. This may really happen after, much easier if rents go down. Maybe that new Susie's daycare or whatever will be able to open up because the rents will be less. So there's going to be some opportunity here, a golden opportunity, and I think we can get it done right.
Perfect. Then let's give you the opportunity. I want to make sure that we're not remiss in asking or offering any insights into the areas you really wanted to be able to communicate today. And if not, let's allow you to let everyone know really why Patrick and where and how they can support and where they can learn more about you.
Well, I'm going to start with, I had a really, really good question from the Sierra Club. And I want to go over that question because I thought it was really good.
Okay.
They say, Patrick, consider that you're on council. Who would you will support? Who would you align with? And I said to them, I would align myself with no one. That doesn't mean I wouldn't work with Sanjay. That doesn't mean I wouldn't disagree with Sanjay. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't work with Sam Hindi. And that I don't. First of all, as a public servant, my first important thing is to serve the public in the best way I can and make decisions on the best interest for them. Not necessarily in a 3-2 vote all the time, because why would they need me if I'm not going to be the voice of the people? So I think it's important that we really take into heed what it means to be a public servant, to serve the public without remuneration, without the benefit. It's not about being mayor. It's not about opening another business. It's not about business connection. This is not the PTA. This is not the Boy Scouts. This is running a city that has a $46 to $47 million budget. It's being there. It's being committed to the community and the job you serve. So what I said in the end, I will work with anyone that's on the council, but I won't work with someone that doesn't show up very much or doesn't contribute in the fashion to prepare themselves for it. It's important that I get back to people on their emails. I don't care if they're asking me on whether we should have bees or chickens. I don't care if it's why or don't we have retail marijuana. I'm going to get back with them because those are the people I serve, the people that are concerned about the levy or even the color of your house, or it could be the airport noise, whatever it is. It's not just sitting there on the throne, on the dais.
So let me ask you this then. Is it fair to say that even though you may have a personal opinion, what you feel your role is to be the voice of what it is that you hear and bring that into the council for discussion?
Absolute, with the caveat that I will listen to other council members too, to get their input too, because they have wisdom too. It's just not my wisdom or the people. Their wisdom I want to learn from. What we don't want to do on this council is repeat the same behavior we did before. I think it's unconscionable for anyone to put a slate together for people for running for council if they're incumbents. I think it's unconscionable because the people should judge it on the characters of the individuals. And to do that is actually perpetrating the same thing they got upset with before in the last 4 or 5 years, a 3-2 vote. It's important that we have objectivity and that everybody stands on their own. Like Martin Luther King said, I'm not going to judge you by your color, but the quality of the individual. So we need to be individuals on that council. We need to work together. We can't just go kumbaya 3-2 all the time. Who's going to be mayor next? The public are upset about that. The public are upset about the Brown Act, which half the people don't understand. So we need new leadership that's going to bring forward integrity, quality of life, preserve the budget, listen to our constituents, make sure yourself's available. Just because you don't reach out, go to farmers market. I'm honored to have been in the farmers market probably too many years and everybody knows me there. And you know what, the most prying things, one lady came up to me on the week, very dignified woman with her little cart, and she said, you know, I'm only voting for you because you are so persistent and I know you will do a good job. I didn't vote for you last time. So I said, thank you, thank you. And then the other person comes up to me and says, Patrick, it's your time. You know, it's not my time, it's our time. It's important that we get it right this time. Break the syndrome. It's not about one group dictating to another, oh, you need to do an RFP on somebody. And yet we're not going to put it transparent until after the election. We need transparency. It's important. And I will make sure that we are on time, on budget, that transparency happens, and that we work it out together.
You know what the best part of this conversation is, Patrick, is there is no shortage of fire and enthusiasm that you have to want to be a part of this community in a more formal leadership role. So with that, we want to say thank you for joining us for a chat with the Chamber and give you the opportunity, shocking as it is, to have the last word from me on where and how people can learn more about you or engage in the days that we still have remaining before they cast their votes.
Well, I'll be out at Farmers Market to the last day. That's one way. You can reach me on www.fostercity.com. You can also reach me at patricksullivanfostercity@gmail.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Google, you name it. We're on every social media. And the one thing I want to share with you, when people go on social media and attack, we go high. We don't go back and attack those people, because you know what? The nice thing on the social media for us, we've always run an honest campaign, and the people that attacked us, guess what? The people that love us went back and knew me and defended us. We didn't have to go in the shallow. It's time to get off social media. Let's get back to communication at the right level. A phone call, an email, a lunch when we can do it, a coffee. It's important to talk. Anybody can hide behind social media. And I asked to those people that are wonderful people that worked on the recall, why didn't you step up to the plate and run for council? It's not easy. It's not easy. You got to have good leadership qualities, and you got to be willing to let all those punches go right off you like the water off a duck. I'm ready to serve.
Well, we appreciate your intensity with wanting to move forward in this process, and we wish you the absolute best of luck as your campaign comes to a close. Thank you again, Patrick, for joining us for a chat.
Thank you, Joanne. I greatly appreciate the opportunity.
Take care.
Bye.